Very good. Just a few more seconds here and we'll get started. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Item number 2, committee and public comments. First, I'll ask for committee comments, then we'll go to the public. Okay. Public comments, sir. If you would, go to the microphone and state your name and town of residence.
You have to speak
Mike
right in. There you go.
Sanat is my name, and I live in the county, and I'm a water district customer. Since I was here last, I've learned an awful lot, and I've learned that the Navy implemented a strategy somewhere around 10 years ago, and this strategy involved setting up the pins, so to speak, for what we're seeing happen right now with regards to the Navy's allocation, their claim of Federal Reserve water rights. This goes back to 2014, 15, 16, when they were setting up the pins on the Groundwater Authority and the formation of the Groundwater Authority and the use of the Navy's DFI model. So without complicating it too much, I can see no reason other than jurisdictional conflicts between Kern County and Inyo County and the city of Ridgecrest and the Navy. I can see no reason why COSO Geothermal shouldn't be part of the equation in any calculations with regards to the water usage in this basin and the available water. The DFI model roughly includes maybe 50%, or the management area, the groundwater management area is mapped out to exclude the entire northern section of the Indian Wells Valley water basin, the watershed boundary. So the first thing I would suggest is that the model be reviewed, peer-reviewed, the boundary be reanalyzed, the management area be reanalyzed. And because COSO's on Navy BLM property, they're not subject to the reporting requirements of Department of Water Resources. So we don't know how much water they're using. We don't know how much water they're pumping back into the ground. We don't know anything about it, really. We know that they're expanding their reach. We know that they just refinanced or financed all of their energy contracts for $323 million. COSO is the most valuable asset, infrastructure asset in this valley. And now that they've done this deal, and I expect that the BLM extension, the 50-year extension that we suddenly discovered, has something to do with that financing deal in COSO Geothermal. They're not going to do a 17-year loan. They're going to do a 30-year loan on that contract. So Southern California Edison is the buyer of the energy. It's an energy, probably a contract that gives the Navy priority when that electricity goes through Southern California Edison. It's going to go to another base if there's ever an interruption in energy. Fits the Navy's plans for energy and water security. They just didn't include COSO or that Rose Valley area in any of this. And I suspect that there's ways to work with Inyo County. There's ways to work with the Navy. And the key is going to be the tertiary treatment facility. I think that this is an opportunity to build a world-class water treatment facility that can handle everything: geothermal, it can handle brackish, and it can handle sewage treatment, at least the secondary and tertiary stage. So without clouding up and raining on the Navy, they've been orchestrating this for many years. It's not a surprise, I guess. It shouldn't be a surprise. And I've let Congressman McCarthy know in very clear terms that this is unacceptable, at least what they're doing with Federal Reserve water rights. It's ironic that they're using a doctrine to assert water rights that was originally intended for as a result of case law involving Indian reservations. And of course, probably one of the most precious cultural concentrations of North American native rock art is in the Coso petroglyphs. And ultimately, I'd like to see that jurisdiction loosened up so that there's more public access, and that might interest Inyo County. So anyway, there's some ideas, and I hope that something can be done with the Navy.
All right, thank you, sir. I very much appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comments? All right, anybody online? Okay, go ahead, Stan.
I thought at one point in time I had heard that Southern California Edison was trying to get out of the contract with COSO. You hadn't heard that?
It's up for renewal, I believe, next year.
Oh,
So he mentions our gentleman from the, go ahead.
I just wanted, it's up for renewal.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's this year or next year, but the contract's up for renewal, so,
All right.
oh,
yeah.
okay.
They'll be renegotiating or something. They financed it. I don't know if they renewed it when they financed it or not. So they had apparently 3 contracts. What they did was they financed the contract. They obviously can't secure the property, but once they get the cash flow established, and that's another thing, I don't know how many megawatts they're producing a year. I've seen 2 different numbers, and there's a big spread between the 2 numbers. So we don't know how much money they're making, but the Navy's getting $15 million. Half of it goes to Washington, half of it goes to the commanding officer of NAWS, and he has the power of the pen on that money for water and security. Water energy and security energy.
All right, very good. I'd like to move on to item 3, if that's possible.
I never understood why Southern California Edison would be trying to opt out of that contract, but I read that somewhere when
That's interesting. I don't know.
well,
All right.
we'll see.
Item 3, Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority.
Oh.
Director Rotora.
Yes. Number of things going on, or should be going on. The Groundwater Authority at the last meeting, by the way, the last meeting was October 13th, and the next one will be November 10th, which will be next Wednesday. At the last meeting, the GA did hire a bond counsel by the name of Wolf Hansen to do research on bonding for the replenishment fee. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes. Our management group, RGS, has apparently selected MIP software for doing our accounting system. At least that's what the tentative selection is, and it makes sense because they've got other clients using that same software, so they've got history with it and some experience. And if it's anything that we need, it's some discipline in our reporting. So I'm hopeful that will actually solve our problems. With regard to financial reporting, the 2020 audit has not been completed, and I'm just hoping that it will be completed before we have to have a budget for FY22. We did get a new finance report format on our last meeting, and quite frankly, I didn't see that it was any more informative, and in some areas less informative than the prior format. We have provided some comments to the general manager. As yet, no reply, but it's only been a little over a week, so I wasn't necessarily expecting one. And quite frankly, I'd much rather have the new software implemented so we can get a real financial report. However, one last comment on the replenishment fee. We will be contributing about $4.1 million for the State Water Project Table A entitlement over the period of this year. At this point in time, we can't account for that money, whether it be spent or somewhere being saved to buy Table A entitlement. So that's something that we need to work on very diligently. And the FY22 budget, in theory, was due to be completed and adopted before the first week of November. And obviously, that's not going to happen. And at this point in time, the schedule is not clear. I did hear a rumor that we might be seeing it at the next meeting, but we'll see. In terms of ongoing activities, we know that the report, the annual report for the water year 2021 is due to DWR on April 1st. I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that it's actually reviewed this time and approved and adopted by the board, which has not happened for the first 2 years. And also, I'm trying to get the TAC assigned to review the 2020 annual report to speed up the process. That is, if the TAC doesn't get their inputs into the Stetson early, obviously it's not going to make the draft report. So anything we can do to get that process sped up would be good. We're still working on the transfer of the basin model to the GA. It's in process, don't have a schedule for that. The shallow well impact program is apparently complete, and at this point in time, the only thing we know about it is that it was significantly modified from the draft version. I suggested that the PAC review it again, and that request fell on deaf ears. So I guess we can all be surprised when it comes out. But obviously, it's a critical issue. I mean, a lot of what we're doing is to try to figure out how we can help the people who own the wells. So there are 2 recycled water efforts that are ongoing. One is a joint statement of work performed by the GA and us, the water district. That has been released to the TAC for review just recently. And the other one is a facility overview that's being prepared by Stetson, although the more I read, the more I think it's really the beginning of a larger scoped project dealing with the whole recycled water program, but we'll have to wait and see what's really going on there. The PAC had its second meeting on the 23rd of September, and that dealt mainly with the communications and engagement plan. There may be a report out this October, and by the way, the next meeting is tonight at 5 o'clock, in case anybody is interested in going. And it appears that the PAC will also be looking at a draft schedule that was put out earlier today. It's rough, but it's a start. As far as the TAC is concerned, the TAC has had no meetings yet since the COVID epidemic. However, as I pointed out earlier, they have received both of those reports, and they are, in theory, reviewing them. But however, without having any meetings, they can't come to a consensus. But I think the individuals are doing what they can with the individual reports. So with that, I'll open to any questions that the board or public might have.
I don't have any questions. Does anyone in the public wish to address Stan's report?
Good afternoon, Mike Neal. Okay, we'll take these one at a time. The bond counsel hiring, I guess, of this firm, you know, an idea bordering on what I'm gonna just have to honestly call just total idiocy. An agency that has zero financial standing really of their own whatsoever wants to throw away, what was it, like $50,000 to this bond counsel? 15. Oh, it was only, well, whatever, only 15, well, we're only wasting $15,000. So, you know, to hire, you know, some overpriced consulting firm to go sit down and you know, I mean, if any sense is exercised on that group's part, they're gonna come back and say, well, you guys can't finance anything, you ain't got nothing. I mean, as far as I know, Searles Valley's still not paying their replenishment fees, so they don't have that. You know, district's been paying it under protest since the beginning. All kinds of people, by the thousands, have protested that, and that's their that and pumping fee is their only stream of income. Period. They overspend. Anything they get, they won't use it properly. They overspend that. I mean, they basically are pretty much running themselves in a hole. So, you know, if I went to go get a loan and I was in that kind of condition, they'd probably say, well, just don't bother putting your application in, sir. You know, just you ain't got nothing there, so we're not gonna risk ourselves. So there we go. More nonsensical actions on the part of all, except of course Mr. Retora, who classically votes no on these kind of things because he understands and he cares what affects people in this valley. The rest of them clearly don't. I won't get into that in detail. Excuse me. Let's see. Oh, the finances. All I had to say about, you know, transferring over the finance and the finance reports that they changed the format of, but then you still can't really get anything out of them. I think we had at least 2 women come up and address in detail, either at the GA meeting or at the city council meeting, about, you know, how they try to look at it and they can't really tell anything about what's going on. And, you know, they just take their fees and, you know, they just throw them around, just this typical slush fund style. So, you know, it makes you wonder if and when, number one, the agency continues to exist, which I hope it does not continue very much longer, and they want to purchase anything, where are they going to get the money from? I mean, obviously they think, you know, like I said, it just distorted reasoning. They're going to go get themselves $50+ million, some kind of bond action, which is going to be opposed violently by people, you know, in this valley. But that's what we got with the GA. And then, if I remember correctly, going to the shallow well mitigation situation, which is, when it gets right down to it, that was the only near-term problem on people's part in this valley concerning water that needed to be dealt with. You know, reportedly, I believe, a couple of years back, it was claimed there were maybe, I don't know, 20 wells around the valley, and you know, this is kind of word of mouth, because I think probably none of these people registered their well. There's a lot of people out there that just are not going to register their well. They're fiercely independent and they're not going to do that, but they still may be having well problems. So let's say 20, just for the sake of relying on the rumor. And I believe what they said at the GA meeting, if I caught it, was zero wells, zero. The program went on, they collected the fees from us, they got the money from us by force, and they haven't not mitigated one single shallow well. Well, you know, it's an advertising problem, you know, it's a public communications problem, it's whatever they want to pick to blame it on. But, you know, if somebody on that board was serious about doing anything other than wastefully spending money and spinning lies out to the public, you know, either the recent letter by the city against the water district, so forth and so on, they'd have gone out there and got themselves in on, you know, what you know, Don Decker knows and all those other guys know, I'm sure you know the whole group of them, and said, well, can you tell us the name of these people? You know, we really want to help them not have dried up wells, and we'll figure out a way to use the citizens' money that we've already extracted from them to help you guys solve your dried up well problem. But here we are, big fat zero. Not one well mitigation has happened. So I guess the question should be at the next meeting, so what about all that money that got extracted from our citizens to solve this problem that we haven't spent any money on? Are you gonna give it back? You gonna refund that money? You haven't mitigated any wells. So I would think that'd be the proper thing to do on the part of the GA. Wouldn't you, Mr. Torr?
Well, it turns out that the first year, most of the money was dedicated to actually putting a program plan together. So I think a good deal of the first year's funding actually has been expended.
On putting a plan together,
Yeah, yes.
of course. But aren't they saying now
Actually-
it's pretty much like said and done? It's over with and there's not
Actually,
gonna be any
there's,
wells
at
mitigated?
this point, there's still not a formal shallow well mitigation program. It's still being reviewed, so there's not a program in place right now. As far as the money in that account, I think $17.50 of every $2,130 per acre foot goes to mitigation. As you mentioned, the water district is the only one paying that fee. I just happened to do the calculation yesterday. I don't remember the exact number. It was a little over $26,000 would be in that account for mitigation.
Okay, so it's been $26,000, what I hear you saying, to come up with a plan. I mean, I could have done that job for 2,000, okay? Easy, it's not hard. Go find the people, say we got money, put your name down here, tell us where you're at, and we'll get some estimates, help you get estimates done and figure out, you know, a reasonable way to help. You know, I mean, I always said all along from the very first, and this was going back, you know, the start of this whole debacle with the GA, that people in this valley would be happy to contribute to a good neighbor fund to help people whose wells are drying up on them and they're not going to have water, you know, and it could have been a community effort, which, you know, those are notoriously more efficient for using money. But, you know, the GA was, you know, we're going to take care, we're going to do all this, we're going to grab control of the whole water situation. And so here we are. I'm very happy to, you know, be informed that we spent $26,000 putting a plan together and not one single well has been helped. So there you go for the GA's performance. Typical.
All right, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Is there anybody online that would like to make a comment? All right. Anybody, any last minute? Okay, let's go to item 4, Brackish Water Study.
Okay, the study is still in a holding pattern until BEST, that's BEST with 2 S's, is on site to sample NR1D and NR2D. They plan to mobilize on Monday, November 8th, with purging and sampling activities commencing on the following day, Tuesday, November 9th. We're still waiting. Invoice number 3, which is in the amount of $75,129.87 after retention, was approved, and we received notice on October 7th confirming that the check had been issued. However, we still haven't received the check. So in an email, response to a follow-up email I sent to our contact at DWR, we were informed that the accounting department rejected and returned it back to DWR because the amendment to the contract, which we requested an extension to June 30th of 2022, hadn't been submitted to the state controller's office. The amendment letter should have been submitted in September. So in following up with our contact, she provided the amendment letter to accounting once again on October 18th. So we're anticipating that the check should be released soon. That's all I have on the Brackish Water Study. Any questions?
Anything online? Okay, well, seeing none, let's go to item number 5, alternate water sources.
Okay, alternate water sources. Tim Parker has been working with Krieger and Stewart on a draft exploration program for the El Paso subbasin. Updates, including the initial draft plan, were provided at both the September 13th and October 12th board meetings. Krieger and Stewart and Tim Parker, the team, putting together a PowerPoint, which they'll be providing for internal review by the team, and then we'll be presenting it at the November 8th board meeting.
Okay,
And that's going to include that's going to include the finances?
Yeah, there'll be, way I understand, they're doing a sort of a decision tree type of visual. Well, it'll show what each task is, what they anticipate the results of those tasks would be, what the deliverables would be, and the cost associated with that task.
Okay.
I haven't seen it, but that's what we discussed.
Okay, great.
okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
Anything else, Don?
No,
Any comments from the public?
Yes, Mike Neal again. While this look at this subject is going on, probably not something that could maybe needs to be brought up and thought about, and this was not actually my idea, but it was brought up to me, is, what about potential water sources in the northern regions of the basin, the coastal range up there? I mean, you got, 6,000 foot elevations. Admittedly, it doesn't snow there like it does in the Sierras because they catch a good bit of it, but it does. It's known, that they get snow up there, which means melt off, which means runoff. So is any of that up there getting looked at?
there's no current study at this time looking at that area. No.
Could it be added into what's going on, or gonna be going on soon?
Well, you're referring to base property, right, on the base?
Yeah,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. I don't know what access would be allowed over in that area. I mean, we tried to do, when we did the SkyTem aerial survey, we were limited in the area that we could fly over, and so it was that particular area we got no information from. So.
Okay, so I would guess there's historic information up for that area up there. I mean, you're talking about, the geothermal plant is just to the north of that. And, hydrologists can probably fairly readily, come up with at least what we call back of the envelope estimates on what they think the yearly precipitation up there is and how that translates into number of acre feet and so forth. And the base typically, unfortunately, tries to put all kinds of hurdles against anything going on, on their property, even though it's something that could, help the workforce that they depend on, that live in this valley. I suggest that they start getting addressed on that. I mean, we're talking about a situation here where we've got this plan as yet approved that says we got about 4,500, 5,000 acre feet of overdraw of the basin. And we know that 2,000 plus is going to be obtained out of the water treatment plant when they're able to recycle water from that. So, to get to what's being defined as balance in the aquifer, we only need to come up with another 2,500 acre feet thereabouts. If we're neglecting looking at any particular avenue to say that, hey, wait a minute, there's water coming in here that we didn't take into account, that can be had, that can be gotten to, possibly some of it readily, without a lot of expense. We could potentially, I see it as highly possible, we could potentially get to balance in the aquifer, recharge and draw. And then it's like, okay, so we don't have to go buy water, we don't have to spend $250 million on pipelines, add all this huge expense onto people's backs. I mean, as it is right now, it's not anywhere near as bad as it's gonna get. When I pay the rest of my bill to the water district, I will have paid a GA fee that's 145% of the water charges on my bill. Now, you tell me any single object of expense that anybody has to pay for, that they would be very happy about seeing their costs go up 145% what it used to be. People will be, outraged, but it ends up being a line item, and they got to pay attention to their water bill. And get past this propaganda. Well, it's just a little bit more every month. Well, look at the percentage, people. It's a way big percentage of more that you're paying for your water because of all this. And we need to work really hard to not do that, to not go there with that kind of cost on our people.
Don, aren't there some wells further west being drilled right now through the COSO grant money? I mean, there are
So is drilling?
up north. Wasn't there some grant money from the COSO effort that was
Oh,
drilling
yeah.
a well, not as far east as what I think he was referring to, but toward the west?
No, some of that coastal royalty money was to go towards a drilling project. I think 2 or 3 wells up in that area, but the wells haven't been drilled yet. I believe they haven't even let the contract out yet for that.
Oh, okay,
Weren't those monitoring wells or,
Right,
right, okay.
yeah.
yes.
Well, but, I mean, people are working that problem, although it is further to the west and doesn't have the problems that you're going to have, given that we want to go into the Navy area. However, the annual report does calculate a water volume, water capacity number using a mathematical formula called a Thiessen polynomial. That does give some information on that. So you might want to refer to the annual report if you're interested.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Neal, for your comments. Does anybody else like to comment? Yep, very good. We have one.
Just quickly,
Okay.
I just want to reiterate that the COSO Rose Valley Argus Range area represents a third of the recharge for this basin. And geographically, there's some reasons to look at COSO, and I think Inyo will like the idea. So it's a matter of Navy. Essentially, COSO Geothermal is a private operation on BLM land. Navy gets a cut, a royalty. They built it. They researched it. They even have their geothermal office located here. And this is part of a larger geothermal energy strategy for the Navy. And I see no reason why the Water District and the Navy can't work together just like COSO, LLC, and the Navy work together. So I view you as the ideal, that the Water District becomes the Valley's expert, all things water. And geothermal and Indian Wells Valley Water District has a lot of synergies to it. I can tell you that I think the city likes the thought. And I also tell you that our groundwater authority is a mess. No, this is no secret. And I suspect that the DWR may fail their plan. So, and as far as borrowing any money, Mike's absolutely right. I don't think there's maybe there's a bank somewhere that, or a hedge fund that would create some junk bonds off this groundwater authority, but I don't think they have a snowball chance to line up any financing. So there's a definite impasse here because of the legal adjudication issue, thank goodness. And maybe we can back up some of these problems that have been created by the politicians and the Navy and have a holistic solution that doesn't require us to spend millions and millions of dollars to buy water in the future that we may not even get. So.
All right, thank you, sir.
I think you're actually talking hundreds of millions of dollars, quite frankly.
So is there anyone online? Very good. All right. Any other comments from the committee? All right, seeing none, I will say Move on to item 6, future agenda items. Does anyone have a future agenda item? Okay, very good. Let's move on to item 7, adjournment, and declare the meeting complete at 2:35 PM, please.